And then the next pivotal moment was when I was 7 years old. And there was bullying going on at school, and there was some stuff going on at home. And I just decided that I didn't want to be here anymore. And I actually tried to kill myself at 7 years old. And I wasn't able to do it because at 7 years old, I didn't know how to engineer that. And so after several failed attempts, I just ran out into the garden to cry. And I was crying and I didn't want to be here and I didn't know how to go. And all of a sudden, this hummingbird came within inches of my face. And I'll never forget her bright red and cobalt blue and shimmering orange and green and her little black beady eyes looking into mine. And I had this feeling come over me that I was supposed to say, but it was going to be okay. And again, there was nature recognizing me and beckoning me, calling me to be part of them. And from that moment on, I would tell anybody that would listen that when I grew up, I was going to have a big place full of animals and I was going to show the world how beautiful they are.
Oof, that was incredible. It's almost like life, the universe was guiding you into this field, right? From a very early age.
Yes.
And it's so amazing what you just shared on many levels, but let me tell you how it personally connects for me real quick. I went through so much bullying in school. I switched schools like 10 times and I didn't want to go on. I never tried to take my life, but I never wanted to go on. You know, the devastation where it's like, all you want to do is fit in and I couldn't get my lifeblood. I say that to say now I created this platform called Connection is Magic because I couldn't connect back then. And now all I want to do as an adult is connect and have people show people that, you know, being different is okay and adversity is okay. It makes you who you're meant to be and all these things. So all of that really tumultuousness has birthed this version. And I feel like you've got that going on for yourself as well.
Yes.
And sounded really painful at the time, obviously, right? So painful at the time, but thank God you were able to use that, you know, for what you were brought here to do. Because thank you for saying that. Ellie, we are the lucky ones, I feel like, because many who experience things like that, it takes them under. Yeah. So I just want to give a moment of gratitude that we're able to do these things and help others. That's really what we're here to do. One of the adversities I feel like that you still have to gracefully move through, and I don't know how you do it, but you're going to tell me, is the passing of a dear animal. Like that just, you know, I follow the account. Tell people about Dudley, because I remembered following that saga and just my heart was in it, you know?
Dudley is the best. So I had a whole series of crazy events. We had one location at the time in Los Angeles. I was trying desperately to open more locations, but the board kept telling us, no, we weren't financially ready. We weren't structurally ready. It just wasn't time. And every time I would go into meditation, I would get my guides telling me, like, you have to move faster. This planet is in peril. You have to open more locations. And I was like, well, I don't know how to do that and move forward because my board isn't ready. So it was something that I was consciously aware of all the time, of like trying to open new locations, trying to expand, trying to bring in more money, trying to save more animals' lives, trying to connect with more people. And I had a dream at night. There was a woman sitting on my bed and she said very, very clearly, she said, in 6 months' time, you will open your next location and it'll be the best 2 years of your life. And I woke up startled and of course didn't see anybody sitting on my bed. And I remember being so crazed by this that I actually got up and wrote it in the journal with the date. And then I kind of forgot about it. A little bit later, it was my birthday. I told my husband, all I want for my birthday is to rescue a cow. I don't want a party. I don't want gifts. Like legit, don't even get me a card. I just want to rescue a cow. And he's like, okay. So we thought we would go locally and find some cow. A few days later, we got a call from Tennessee from this woman saying that there was a cow there who had lost his foot. He was hobbling around in tremendous pain. Nobody will take him. She's called 200 people. She knows that we're all the way in California, but could we at least give her some advice because she doesn't want to see this cow slaughtered. My husband got the call. He started making calls to bovine surgeons in the area and found one of the best. Then he started making calls to companies that make prosthetics, and he found several companies that were willing to make a prosthetic foot for a cow. And a few days later, he came to me and said, happy birthday, we're going to Tennessee. That's awesome. And we went to Tennessee. We rescued Dudley. We brought him to the UT Knoxville Hospital. He got the amputations and the surgeries that he needed. We got a prosthetic company to make a foot for him. He got used to it, and then he was ready to be discharged. When he was ready to get out of the hospital, we toyed with the idea of bringing him all the way to California, but like we live in a desert on sand, and I just pictured the grains of sand in the prosthetic, and I was like, this is not going to work. So we went to the board again and said, can we open a gentle barn in Tennessee for Dudley? And by this point, Dudley was world famous, and they said yes.
Wow.
So we opened a gentle barn in Tennessee for Dudley and many, many subsequent animals. But here's why Dudley was special. Dudley had lost his mom at very, very young. Then he lost his foot. Then he lived in a pasture without a foot, hobbling around in tremendous suffering. And then we rescued him and brought him to the hospital, and he was in the hospital, in and out of surgeries for 5 months. And he didn't complain, not once. He had a curiosity about him that lit up the room. He would play. He was grateful for everything. He was never sad. He was always just grateful and counting his blessings. And he had such a wild effect on everyone that knew him. And when he finally made his way to the gentle barn and we opened up to the public and had people come and visit him, they would burst into tears before they even touched him. They would cuddle him, and he would wrap his neck around them and hold them for hours. And he worked with foster children. He worked with amputees and war vets. He worked with troubled teens. He even turned a hunter to go vegan.
Wow.
He had a massive effect on not just the people that met him in person, but the world sharing him on social media. And sadly, he only lived 2 years because there were complications with his last surgery. And he was the only animal in the 21-year history of the Gentle Barn that we ever had a public memorial for. And there were 3,000 people that wanted to come from around the world, and we had to cap it at only 500 because the venue would only hold 500. And we got thousands and thousands and thousands of letters from people around the world that shared that they were suicidal, and because of Dudley, they chose to live, that they had a terminal illness, and Dudley encouraged them to fight, and they're now in remission. We had one woman that said that she was agoraphobic and hadn't left her house in 10 years. And because of watching Dudley virtually, she decided that if Dudley can make it, so can she. And she left her house for the first time in 10 years and found a sanctuary in Canada to volunteer with. He had such a global impact. And then, of course, millions of people went vegan and, started loving animals because of him. It's been years since his passing, and people still talk about him to this day. He was a rock star. He was a legend. And when he passed away, I thought I was going to die. And so did many other people.
So it's no surprise that I never met Dudley, but I felt connected to Dudley in a way that I've never felt connected at that level. But that doesn't surprise you.
We travel a lot. Yeah. And we will literally be in the middle of a crowded airport, and someone will be like, oh my God, are you from Gentle Barn? I remember where I was when Dudley passed. I was at work and I had to leave home because I had to go home because I couldn't even function at work. He had that impact on people. And I can't explain it. He just did.
We're going to bring it back to my original question with that too. How do you gracefully move through something so, I gotta say devastating, because it feels devastating to me. It really does, that type of loss. So how do you move gracefully through that? How have you learned to move gracefully through that? And what can other people learn from how you move through something that heavy?
What saved me was animal communication. I don't know how people have these devastating losses to animals that are with them day in and day out, and sometimes are the only ones that really understand them, and they lose them. I don't know how anyone survives it without animal communication. And that's why I do it professionally. I've been talking to animals since I was a child, but I didn't have confidence in myself. So back when Dudley passed away, I literally thought I was going to die. And it was the help of an animal communicator named Amanda Reister. She communicated to Dudley for me, and being able to hear his voice and feel his presence and know that he's still with me, even though he left his body, helped me go on. She taught me how to talk to him for myself. And then I studied formally animal communication so I could get my confidence back. And that's why I do animal communication for other people, because there's people all over the world that are suffering so badly, especially through this pandemic. When we lose an animal or lose anybody, we can go to work, we can go to the bar, we can go out with friends, and we can get out of our feelings. But during the pandemic, there are so many people that are stuck in their feelings and they can't distract themselves. And it is so excruciating. There's so many people that are hurting. And being able to talk to people's animals for them and let them know that they're still with them, that they're not gone. It's just a change of a relationship, helps people heal. And I get to pay it forward because it saved my life. If our lives are cushy and sweet and loved and joyous, and we're sitting there sipping Mai Tais and eating bonbons, no growth is going to come out of that, unfortunately. We can't grow, we can't learn, we can't cultivate awareness and empathy. It's only through our deepest and darkest struggles that we end up finding ourselves, and there ends up being a life-saving gift that comes out of it that we're here to share with the world. And so, it might sound cliche, but when I look back at my life and all the things that I've gone through, I am grateful for every single one. I am grateful for the suffering. I'm grateful for the loneliness. I'm grateful for not feeling like I belonged. I'm grateful for even the drug addiction and suicide attempts, because I have cultivated an awareness and an empathy out of that. And it's broken me down to my knees to give me an opportunity to find a way to stand up. And so now I'm comfortable in my own skin. I know my gifts and talents. I get to share it with the world, and I get to be there and inspire other people that are broken like I was. And the entire journey was there to get me to this moment. And I'm the happiest now than I've ever been in my entire life. And I wake up grateful every day. And it's only because of my pain that I get this extreme joy, because I found my way through it. And what doesn't break me makes me stronger. And I'm sure that you can identify with the exact same thing.
Amen. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm talking, chronic illness for 15 years, near-death experiences, being bullied, almost dying. It goes on and on and on. Addiction. I had a terrible addiction. And it's interesting. Like, I feel like you and I are both very feeling souls. We are. And I feel like when you are a feeling soul, sometimes the world is too much when you're a feeling soul. So we find maladaptive ways when we're younger to deal with that, having that soul that's highly sensitive. And then through getting broken down time and time again, then we learn much more healthy strategies to say, okay, how can I turn this into an asset instead of it being a liability? Does that make sense?
Yes, 100% It makes sense. And I had a near-death experience too, so we have that in common as well.
Was that in your teenage years, or was that more recent?
Yeah, I'll tell you if you tell me yours.
I have no problem. Yeah. We're all about vulnerability because, that's how we connect. Connection is magic, and you can only connect if you pull back the curtain. Okay. So of course, this actually occurred 5 years ago when not only was I having a near-death experience, Ellie, but I had just gotten into a bad car accident on the 10 about a month before my near-death experience. And I was losing my career. And I was in financial ruin, and everything was just happening at once. And I really thought it was the end. And I was just hanging on for dear life. And I thought I had the flu at first. I was at my house and I was throwing up, and it was for 3 days. And I thought I was nursing a flu. And then I started not be able to talk, put words together, right? And I was speaking gibberish. And my roommate was like, "What are you saying right now?" And I was like, "Something's going on here." Spoke to my mom, who's a nurse. She insisted that an ambulance come. So she called an ambulance. I go to the hospital and find out that I had a tumor growing right here on my pituitary that hemorrhaged, that I didn't know. So blood was actually in my brain when I was vomiting for 3 days, but I thought it was the flu. So yeah. And so my sodium level, I don't know if we need a certain sodium level for heart function and for our body to do its job. So the normal level for sodium starts at 135. And when you go to 120, it's like code blue, it's a big jump. I was at 105. I shouldn't be here, is what the doctor said. Is that you should have slipped into a coma and been out of here. So yeah. That was my near death. So it took about 12 days in the hospital to bring me back through that. And it was unbelievable. And what made it worse was when the ambulance came, they thought I was on drugs because I was a younger guy living in Hollywood. So they weren't even taking me serious. So it really, I still get kind of charged when I think about that. So, but now here I am, and I've got this podcast. I'm doing this work in the world. So it all comes full circle. And now it's a really cool story. And I just want to share my message to inspire other people. So that's my story.
Well, I am very, very glad that you stayed.
Thank you, Ellie. Thank you.
Really important.
Thank you.
My near-death experience is not as glamorous or as exciting as that whole story. It was when I was giving birth to my son, and he wasn't coming out, and I needed a C-section after laboring for 17 hours. And so they gave me an epidural, and they were all kind of down there getting the baby out, and nobody was paying attention to me, and I couldn't breathe. I had a very big reaction to whatever they gave me. So I couldn't breathe, and I passed out and died. And I actually went, you hear people talk about this, that I went, I guess, to the other side, and oh my God, it was so peaceful and loving and joyous. And it was the most beautiful feeling I have ever had in my life. And they kind of gave me a choice. You could stay here or you could go back to your body. And I remember, like, God, what do I do? Like, this is the best feeling in the world. I kind of don't want to leave. But what about my son? I mean, he's going to grow up without a mom. And I had all these big dreams since I was 7, and I haven't done any of them. I feel like it was wasted life. And so I was like, you know what? No, I want to stay, and I want to do what I've come here to do. And I want to be a mom to my son. And so they resuscitated me, and I came back to my body. Since then was this really urgent drive to open the Gentle Barn. Like, the minute I chose to stay, prior to then, I suicide attempts and drug overdoses and just hating this planet and hating this life and just not being happy. But the minute I made that choice to stay, I was on fire. And I started the Gentle Barn a year later.
I love that so much. Oh, something about that perspective shift too, right? Yes, you chose to come back, but then it made you savor every moment being back in a way, right?
Yes.
People are hurting out there, and they need to know that just, breathe through it. When we go through these most challenging circumstances, it's like, we think it's never going to end. Have you done yoga, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. I think a great example, yoga mirrors life in so many ways. When you're in that pose and your whole body's shaking and you don't think you can hold on to that pose anymore, you have to remember that you're going to be out of that pose. Like, that pose will shift. And then, my 5-year run where I lost my business and a near-death experience and everything, it was that pose that felt like it was never going to end, and my whole body was shaking, metaphorically speaking, and I came out of it, and now I'm in Shavasana.
Oh, that is so beautiful. I love that.
And you are too. So we kind of get each other at a really deep level here. It's really cool. There's this saying that goes, your animal chooses you. Can you tell us about that and your thoughts on it?
This is what I like to believe. I believe that we choose this life before we incarnate. I think we choose the circumstances, we choose the lessons, even the hardships, we choose it. And we also choose who's going to be our soul family to help us along the way. And so that's why many of us have an experience where you meet an animal and you just know immediately that they're going to be yours. It's because there's a recognition. And I think that's true for human soulmates too. Like, when you meet a person and you just feel like you've known them forever, it's because there's a recognition. And I just think that's so. I mean, I think that there's soulmate animals that come in and out of our life, and they're here to help us along our journey. Just like we would find a best friend in human form, that's true for animal form as well. Oh, that's so cool. It's almost like, I'm sure you've heard Ram Dass. Ram Dass said, we're all just walking each other home. Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. Yes.